Everyone, I will continue with earthquake in Turkey, and here will be different views and Russian perspective. I'm going to read up on an article which usually touches on the channel on dzen called Open Seminary. It usually explains, interprets Bible and other prophecies, and it deals with religion often, but this one will be their view on earthquake in Turkey, and with many references to other outlets, Telegram, what Turkish people share, what people in Europe share, neighboring country like Romania in their parliament and news. Okay. Article by Open Seminary blog in Russian with reference to Turkish blog by Mobius. Quote, Turkey and Syria were destroyed by the United States with geological weapons. A discussion of the facts. The strangeness of the devastating earthquake that shook Turkey and Syria was evident from the very beginning. This is the absence of an earthquake epicenter and the directional nature of seismic shocks, and the hitherto unknown duration and amplitude of impacts, and a strange aftershock, which was not inferior to an earthquake in either power or amplitude, and strange lights and flashes in the skies over the affected areas, and much more. To date, enough information has been collected to start talking at the level of the parliaments of European countries about what Romanian Senator Diana Șoșoacă said in parliament. Turkey uses geological weapon for the first time. Romanian Senator Diana Șoșoacă said in parliament that the earthquake in Turkey was deliberately caused, that it was a continuation of the pandemic, vaccination, and wars, that the ordered earthquake is an attack on the country and Erdogan, who stands in position of neutrality and mediation. About oddities, Diana Șoșoacă noted that 24 hours before the earthquake, 10 countries withdrew their ambassadors from Turkey. 5 days before, the Romanian Foreign Ministry issued a warning to its citizens. This strange earthquake did not have an epicenter. There was an epiline and 150 shocks aimed at destroying pipelines they had managed to block. Șoșoacă is sure that another state was involved in the destabilization of tectonic plates, after which a chain reaction began. The deputy said that those who talk about peace are attacked by those in power. Plagiarists, thieves, cowards, traitors, awarded by foreigners for special merits in their support at the expense of Romania. That they are trying to turn the country from a neutral sovereign state into a servile and offensive one, in order to put Romanians on cannon fodder for the benefits of others. Similar discussions broke out all over the world. Many netizens, including prominent scientists, politicians, etc., agree with that what some call the conspiracy theory, believes that the earthquake in Turkey and neighboring Syria was created by the United States using American HAARP technology. Since last night, the hashtag HAARP has gone viral on Twitter, receiving over 100,000 tweets. Here is what is usually written. Okay. Are we to believe that completely by chance the embassies of major European countries in Turkey closed and citizens of these countries were issued urgent warning to leave Turkey just a week ago? The presence of light and lightning in the sky during the earthquake has caused rumors of the use of technologies like HAARP, government should immediately call US embassy, ask their ships leaves Turkey now. The cloud and the blue thing. Sooner or later there will be an earthquake in this region, South Central Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. Frank Huger Beats. The sky was like in Aurora Borealis, but blue tone. It was like covered in a blue neon light, the area just before the earthquake. Earthquake in Turkey looks like a punitive Operation HARP by NATO or the US against Turkey. These lightning strikes are not common in earthquakes, but always happen in HARP operation. Another Twitter user wrote, 3 weeks ago, Serkan Karabakh of FETO said there was going to be a 7.4 earthquake. An American ship anchored in Turkey and the button was pressed. The embassies were closed and the staff of the embassy was withdrawn in advance. Another user wrote, these clouds are the result of American HARP weapon activating the ionosphere on February 2, 2023 to create an artificial earthquake. Wanted to create an artificial earthquake in Istanbul, they deliberately closed the consulates. Those who still laugh at the conspiracy theory in quotes are beginning to understand everything from their own experience, warned another. Many people using social media think that HARP is being used to punish Turkey for refusing to work with the West. In particular, they say that the United States is punishing Turkey for friendly relations with Russia and for blocking NATO decisions against Russia. This is a small and wild, but no less bloody and destructive revenge of the United States, and at the same time threats against Turkey, Syria, and all countries that dare to go against the imperial policy of England and the United States. This is the general conclusion of most ordinary netizens. There are no coincidences, as one user wrote. Several users pointed to the lights that were visible before the catastrophic earthquake. This is the moment of the earthquake in Turkey. Can anyone explain what the blue light in the sky meant? The sky was clear, there could be no lightning. HARP technology exists to artificially trigger an earthquake. Is this induced HARP attack? I tend to believe. Data. The US Air Force Research Laboratory owns the HARP Research Center located near Gacona, Alaska, which was built in the 1990s and is currently operated by the University of Alaska Fairbanks. HARP researchers use a powerful high-frequency transmitter and array of 180 HF dipole antennas to temporarily disrupt the ionosphere, the outermost layer of Earth's atmosphere above the mesosphere, about 50 to 400 miles from the Earth's surface, for a variety of purposes. The ionosphere is characterized by a high concentration of ions and free electrons that reflect radio waves. A 2017 study published in the journal Science Advances concluded that both natural and man-made earthquakes have the same potential for shaking and damage, and that emitters such as HARP are capable of causing the most destructive earthquakes. In October 2022, HARP began its largest series of experiments at its own observatory. The consequences of these experiments are seen by many today in the tragedy in Turkey and Syria. It was done, as many note, it was ruled almost without cover in an attempt to intimidate other countries, of course. Although, of course, there will be no open recognition from the United States of involvement in this earthquake. But it is very interesting how the West assesses the strategic situation in Turkey, which has developed after the earthquake. It is clearly seen that the earthquake was very necessary for the United States. It came exactly on time, and it clearly aimed at removing Erdogan and replacing him with a pro-American puppet, as in most countries. I'm translating and reprinting here for Open Seminary readers today CNBC news agency article titled "The Devastating Earthquake in Turkey Came at a Critical Moment for the Country's Future." Turkey's devastating earthquake comes at a critical time for the country's future. The lives of millions of people in Turkey and Syria were forever changed on Monday when two consecutive earthquakes sent shockwaves hundreds of miles away. At intervals of 9 hours and magnitudes of 7.8 and 7.5 on the Richter scale, earthquakes rocked Turkey and Syria and were the strongest in the region in almost a century. At the time of writing, the death toll from earthquake has exceeded 12,000, now more than 20,000 people, many of whom are still missing and seriously injured. The World Health Organization has estimated the number of people affected by disaster at 23 million. At least 6,000 buildings collapsed, leaving residents buried under the rubble. Rescue efforts are still the top priority, with about 25,000 people mobilized in Turkey and thousands and more dispatched from abroad, but a brutal winter storm is now threatening the lives of survivors, those still under the rubble. Syria, ravaged by 12 years of war and terrorism, is the least prepared for such a crisis. Its infrastructure is severely depleted, and the country remains under Western sanctions. Thousands of those in affected areas are already refugees or internally displaced persons. While the dust from the catastrophe is still settling, regional analysts are focusing on the long-term effect the catastrophe could have on Turkey, a country whose population of 85 million is already mired in economic trouble and whose military strategy, economy, and politics are having a big impact far beyond its borders. A decisive year for Turkey. This year will be a critical reflection point for Turkey as it approaches the May 14th presidential elections. The outcome of this election, whether current President Recep Tayyip Erdogan stays in power or not, will be huge implications for Turkey's population, economy and currency, and democracy. Erdogan's response to the disaster and potential calls for accountability for why so many buildings were not designed to withstand such aftershocks will now play a major role in his political future. If rescue work is done wrong and people get frustrated, there is a backlash. Mike Harris, founder of Cribstone Strategic Macro, told CNBC Tuesday. So Erdogan lost control of the situation. Through a very unorthodox policy, Erdogan found a very creative and very costly way to essentially de-dollarize the economy, he said, citing examples such as allowing the Turks to keep their bank deposits at a rate of 13% and then promising to cover his losses if the currency will fall even more. Harris boldly predicted actually if he wins, the currency should collapse because there will be no certainty, and he has created this artificial scenario that cannot be sustained for a long period of time. In addition, Erdogan's earlier fiscal campaign promises such populist moves as raising wages and lowering the retirement age may now prove unfulfillable as more public funds need to be channeled into rebuilding entire cities and towns. Economic anxiety. Turkey's economic downturn was driven by a combination of high global energy prices, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the war in Ukraine, and mainly by Erdogan's economic policies, which lowered interest rates despite skyrocketing inflation, causing the Turkish lira to plummet to a record low against the dollar. Turkey's foreign exchange reserves have fallen sharply in recent years, while Ankara's current account deficit has widened sharply. The Turkish lira has lost almost 30% of its value against the dollar over the past year, severely damaging the purchasing power of Turks and undermining Erdogan's popularity. Turkey's opposition parties have not yet nominated their candidate. The strongest potential challenger, Istanbul Mayor Erkem İmamoğlu, was arrested and stripped of political status in December on charges that his allies say are politically motivated and are used solely to prevent him from running for president. Mobius noted that Turkey's latent unpreparedness for an earthquake caused by the president will now be emphasized, which could soon become an obstacle to Erdogan's chances in the election. NATO and the powerful role of Turkey on the world stage. Internationally, Turkey's future affects the war in Ukraine given Erdogan's role as an intermediary between Ukraine and Russia. Turkey is a major member of NATO, which still stands in the way of Sweden and Finland joining a power defense alliance. Ankara is also brokering the Black Sea Grain Initiative between Ukraine and Russia, which allows Ukraine's vital grain supplies to be exported to the rest of the world despite Russia's naval blockade of Ukrainian Black Sea ports. Here I wanted to remind to my viewers that by grain they mean something else: human capital, possibly organs. Erdogan's response to the earthquakes and subsequent election results will have an impact on all of this. Turkey will get some relief from Western pressure on its stance on NATO after the earthquakes, but not for long. It will be temporary, Ulgen said. Turkey will consider a few weeks of respite, but after that it will return to business on the foreign policy side. Open Seminary conclusions. It was the end quote. We see that even in the newspapers, conditions are already being dictated to Erdogan. Open threats are being published, and the planned scenario of the failure of his election is being presented if he refuses to listen to the United States. We remember Erdogan's recent reaction to terrorist attacks organized by Western intelligence agencies in Turkey. It was a very worthy, direct, and honest reaction, where the president of Turkey openly admitted that the West declared itself an enemy of Turkey and used a forbidden method, terrorism, to undermine the credibility of the authorities. What will be the president's reaction to the new tricks of his American frenemies? This is what we will see in the very near future. Now user comments to the article. There will be no peace and tranquility because of the USA. They have about 8 harps on every continent and in Australia too. They will do both at the North and South Poles. Then they will arrange trash for everyone to shake and feel. The ionization of atmospheric particles creates a huge magnet that attracts lava masses to the surface of the Earth's crust. And the ship was needed to debug the focus of the strike with a geoweapon. A satellite was tied from it and it already concentrated and directed the focus force of 3-4 harps installment to a single fault point. The effect of resonant surge is called when waves from 3-4 sources intersect at one point with the same frequency. A resonant undermining of the top of the medium occurs. This was tested by Tesla on Tunguska for this, and they eliminated him for this. He received a very powerful weapon. New harps do not need an antenna field. One Tesla generator with the radiation of given waves is enough. The main thing is to get a resonance point in the right area, which is what the US ship did, stood where it was ordered to focus on it and shifted to that fault zone. Without a reference ship with a frequent determiner, nothing would have happened. Second comment from another person. I don't know about Turkey, but there are works by seismologists that when stresses arose in the Earth's crust, Caribbean plate, an earthquake could have taken place in the California or Haiti region. With the help of HARP, the Americans heated the ionosphere over Haiti, which artificially caused earthquakes and thus deflected the blow from California. Conclusion from the document retrieved. Realization of the forecast of a catastrophic seismic event in Central America in the form of devastating earthquake in Haiti on January 12, 2010 confirms the correctness of the approaches and methods in developing the concept of seismic tectogenesis. The ground-based system for monitoring global geophysical signs of earthquake preparation created on the basis of the concept allowed to reveal the facts of artificial impact on the ionosphere using HARP heating installation in Alaska and in Tromsø, which could initiate the launch of an earthquake in Haiti. Such experiments are prohibited by a number of international treaties. Therefore, with further improvement of the monitoring system, it is possible to use it to control compliance with this agreement. Analysis of geophysical features and cloud seismotectonic indicators of the mega earthquake in Japan on March 11, 2011 led to the conclusion that it is possible to predict such earthquake using STG concept. At the same time, success will largely be determined by the effectiveness of international cooperation in the field of ground space monitoring and the exchange of geophysical data with seismic prediction features. The work was supported by the Russian Foundation for Basic Research, project number 1108-00795. Third comment. In fact, HARP uses the same physical principle as over-the-horizon radiolocation. Its meaning is in the supply of radio pulses to a thin layer of the ionosphere at a certain frequency with a certain modulation. At this moment, the ionosphere acts as a waveguide for the signal, and by controlling the modulation, it is possible to, quote, drop the signal from the ionosphere onto the Earth's surface and receive reflection of the signal on the other side of the Earth. This is over-the-horizon radar, and HARP, among other things, uses a resonance system to study changes in the Earth's magnetic field. A resonance allows you to use very small powers to colossal consequences. This is what Tesla studied, described, and implemented. The scary thing is that such installation can burn the entire atmosphere of the Earth at once, which will flare up and we will become another Mars, a lifeless planet in the solar system. So, two people mentioned Tesla and Tesla's technology. in the end, to conclude, I would like to express my humble opinion about all these things, because although I'm not a scientist again, especially not a British scientist from Oxford or Harvard, yeah. And also, but yours truly predicted an earthquake in Turkey. You can see this in my videos. You can hear it, my videos from a couple of months ago. Anyways, yours truly believes that this was something that may not be a harp, because everybody is trying to point to harp. I don't think so. And actually, when this happened, I had thought that there will be outright open war between Turkey and Poland. So I don't suspect, firstly, United States. I now always suspect England, MI6, MI5, and only then the rest. So in this case, my first logic would be that it would be Poland, because Poland was promised the most of the cream, the benefits from Northern Stream gas pipeline from Russia being blown up. Then in my suspect list goes US, because I just think that only they can have such equipment, although I doubt. Then it's UK, and there are other historic enemies of Turkey like France and Iran. So when this thing happened, well, I don't believe that this cloud that you see on the screen is something that HARP produced. I believe that this is an alien spaceship, that many people and animals were taken on the spaceships and transferred to the safe place to live, especially children. So when this thing happened, there was a meteorite over some territory of France. So if this meteorite was or was not an army making an artificial, maybe it was a missile, maybe it was something like I don't know, maybe somebody shot down something or something like that. If it's not a military generated event, so this meteorite is the highest power, whatever the forces are, the divine is pointed to France, I think. So if this meteorite was a natural cosmic event, if it's not a military, somebody shooting the missile down, then this meteorite is an open sign from the highest powers that it was France to blame. Anyways, I'm sure that Turkish government knows by now who has done this, because again, I will repeat, they work through psychics, and whoever is ruling France now, their president looks really stupid to me and a bit perverted, like a degenerate, and no surprise that normal people in France are always rebelling over their latest years. And I think that it will backfire on Europe badly, because a lot of crops and a lot of fruits and vegetables and a lot of fibers like cotton grows in Turkey. So this will mean that some of the European countries of the European Union will have to starve This is what I think, first and foremost. So this will backfire badly if some European country actually organize that. I don't think they really understand how much fruit and vegetables and all the rest is coming from Turkey and is not branded that way. Because when I traveled across Europe, I didn't see much of fruits and vegetables which they claim were theirs. And if France count on their African colonies, no, Africans are going to rebel. They will have their own problems like flood, so they won't share theirs. And Turkey will put their resources like food and all these vegetables and fruits and clothing into feeding their own people who suffered. There are whole cities. And this will cut Europe out, and this will make them starve. Eventually will catch up on them in 5 months. At most, they will start starving. Of course, this all will be hidden, and there will be false reports about everything being great and economy picking up, while people will be embarrassed of their own misfortunes, because nobody wants to feel left out from this economic success, which is the prime value in the West. The basic top value there now is to be, it seems, financially successful, and it dims all other values in their system. So anyways, coming back to my conclusion, so I don't think it's harp. I think it's some kind of acoustic weapon, and that it was created in the sea. Turkey is surrounded by seas, on the bottom probably of the ocean by the navies. And I believe they created some kind of a whirlpool, and because of this, I personally don't know what ion or ionization means, because they use all these scientific terms that I don't understand. I never seen that in my life, what they do to it. I know the sound, how it works, so I believe that this whole Mendeleev's table of chemical elements was corrupted, edited, particularly ether was cut out of it. And I believe that the formula of water is not what we think it is. Like, it's not H2O. It's something else. And probably they learned how to split the water. And I think that they use some kind of an alignment at their stars and other celestial bodies like moon, and they used that particular period, and also it was the earthquake was along the same longitude I heard. So there was some constellation, etc., alignment during that period, and all these celestial bodies, they emit certain frequency, certain sounds. So this was some kind of acoustic weapon that made solid stuff through water, through the help of water. They know how to split water into separate elements. So, for example, it's not hydrogen, made of hydrogen and oxygen. There are other components to that, to water, like acoustic component to water. So they learned how to manipulate that along their they use the frequencies that celestial body emit, and they combine it with water, the whirlpool, they create the whirlpool somewhere at the bottom of the sea, somewhere at the bottom of the ocean, and this makes the water split, and the solid structure like earth, soil, concrete would turn into sand, so it will crumble like sand. So the solid structure would split because water that sticks them together would be split, and it would turn the solid walls into sand, something like powder, and it will all crumble. Because the way that the buildings were damaged, it didn't look normal to me. So that's what they did, and we will never know who stands behind it, but I advise to American people to find out and to to execute them in public square somewhere, because otherwise your children cannot sleep safe, because they will surely revenge on you. And Turkish are very good warriors, and they are a very sophisticated nation. You just have no idea. They have experience in war operation, and they are intelligent, and their civilization goes way, way back then, like Iran, what we call Persia. So I advise you Americans to clear yourself if you can be cleared. And you need, of course, some big changes in your system to be... First, it should happen on a spiritual level, and then it will materialize. Because something terrible is happening, and Turkey is a very big country. And they will not forgive you. And you are in an imminent danger within the next 5 years. And and again, I will tell you that we will never know about this, how it was made, and how the crime will never be solved and never will be presented to public, because they would have to reveal that they lie about chemistry, they lie about water, like they lie about all this DNA and nano stuff, minus 9 degrees size. So anyways, my opinion, it was an acoustic weapon created by the Navy at the bottom of the ocean, of the seas, and it split water molecules, and the water formula is not correct, so they know the correct formula and they know how to manipulate it, and that's what made the magma under the earth move and crumble, and that's what caused also the collapse of the building. And they will, of course, blame the construction executives, the construction companies that build houses in Turkey. I don't believe that that people in Japan are much smarter than Turks. The Turks don't know how to build. So I think that the houses crumbled the way they crumbled because this was the technology to turn solid stuff into sand.